This is Healthy Souls with Father Nicholas Louh, helping you to live a Christ-filled life in today's world. Father Nicholas is the pastor of St. John the Divine Greek Orthodox Church in Jacksonville, Florida.
Good morning. It's so good to see all of you here this morning worshiping with us. I thank you as I do every Sunday. Just thank you so much for being with us and worshiping with us. I truly believe at my core that seeing all of you here, that there's power in prayer. The Bible says that the prayers of a righteous person are effective. In other words, when we pray, it shifts, it moves things. And the fact that you're all here truly touches my heart. I love it. I love it when you're here. I can feel your prayers with me. So thank you so much. And to those of you that are worshiping with us online, we love having you part of our church family. You're part of our virtual family. We thank you for being part of our church. And if you happen to be new to our church, every Sunday we say this. I look out and I just kind of canvass this beautiful church, and I see all these new people here. Thank you for being with us. And we just encourage you, if you're exploring the Orthodox Church, as we're handing out our holy bread at the very end of the service, please introduce yourselves to us. I'll tell you all about the great things that we got here going on at St. John the Divine. Before I share with you today's message, our sermon, I do want to just encourage all of you that in a couple of weeks from now, we have our festival. It's truly an amazing time. Actually, less than 2 weeks from now, we have our festival. It's such an exciting time here at St. John the Divine. And I just encourage you, if you're new to our church or if you've been part of our church for a while, tell everyone that you know about this festival. And more importantly, do us a favor. Come and help us. This is a great way, especially if you're new, but even if you've been a part of the church for a while and you want to get to know some of the new family members of our church, this is an absolutely great way to meet people in our church. You can find out all about it if you're able to volunteer, not next weekend, the weekend after. You'll definitely want to call the church. We'll tell you all about how you can register to volunteer. And then this is even the best part, okay? At some point in the next couple of weeks, y'all need to take pictures of this behind me, because scaffolding for our new iconography project is coming in a couple of weeks. And you will never, ever see that backdrop again the way it is. The icons are already, some of them have already been delivered. It's going to be an amazing time. So maybe take a family picture of the before and then the family picture after. It's going to be truly, truly amazing. So just wanted you all to know that. So let's get started, okay? Several weeks ago, we began a new sermon series on the book of Daniel. And so every year, I like to take a book out of the Bible and just kind of guide you and inspire you about what that book is all about. I truly believe that we are a church that is centered around the Bible. In fact, on the altar table, every single church in the Orthodox world has the Bible on the altar table. It is a sign of our commitment and our following of the teachings of Christ. And so today I want to go into chapter 3 of the book of Daniel. A few moments ago, you heard me come out here and say, wisdom, let us be attentive. And then there was this hymn that we sing. It says, come, let us worship and bow down to our King and our God. And then a few moments from now, you're going to hear me tell you, peace be with all of you. Let us bow our heads to the Lord. Our God loves when we bow and worship Him, when we adore Him, when we honor Him. That when we see Him, that when people see us, they see the God that we worship. Our God loves us when we bow and worship Him. But you need to know this, church family. We are living in a world that there is an enemy of the world. Some may even call the little g of the world, the little god of this world, that is telling us to follow Him. That He will give you what you need and what you want. And we see that happening so often. Do you know that in the Old Testament, one of the names of the devil is called Lucifer? You should go and read this, and I think sometimes we kind of glance over that. Sometimes we just kind of begin reading at the New Testament. You can't get to the New Testament if you don't read the Old Testament. And here's this guy Lucifer. He's an angel of God whose primary purpose was to give God adoration, worship, to bow down before Him. But Lucifer didn't want that. He got jealous of what God was getting, and he wanted that adoration and that worship. He wanted people to worship and adore Him. And we're living in a world, my friends, that we're seeing that. Well, I don't see that, Father Nick. Well, let me show you how, okay? We are living in a world that is shifting in culture. In other words, we are seeing a society that is shifting from what God says to follow to what the world is telling us to follow. We're seeing a world saying, stop bowing down to God, and guess what? Bow down to me. Bow down to you. We're seeing a world that says to us, hey, honor humanity in this area, but dehumanize people in that area. In other words, value the life of here, but devalue life there. We're seeing a world that says that we can be pro-life in one area of our life, but then be for killing in another area of our life. You want to go deeper? We see a world that tells us, follow God's morals and values, to a world that's telling us, you know what, just do you. In fact, that's a phrase a lot of our young people use. Hey, just do you, and I'll do me. No, don't do you. That's the problem. We're finding our world constantly shifting in culture. And perhaps one of the greatest books in the Bible that speaks about what God warns us about is in this book of Daniel, where he says to us and he shows us a people who were warned time and time again to follow God and still went away. The book of Daniel is about the people who were living, the Hebrew people, the Jewish people. And here they were for years and years. They had just been freed. They had just crossed over the Red Sea. They had just experienced this freedom. Could you imagine walking through an area that the Red Sea was literally parted, like you saw the Red Sea on one side and the Red Sea on the other, and you're able to walk on the sand between that? They saw that. They heard God speak to them. And throughout the Old Testament, God is telling them, I need you to follow me. I want you to worship me. Be careful of the other gods. And God kept sending prophets to warn them to get back on track. And time again, they would fall away. And so God said, listen, I'm not going to cause another people to conquer you, but I will allow it. I will allow it. If you're going to choose another God over me, I'll go ahead and allow it. And so these people of Babylon, this is so cool, everyone. The word Babylon, you know what it means? For those of you that are Arabic or speak Hebrew, the word Bab is a door. It's the gate of the gods. In other words, Babylon was a place where you could just worship any god, including yourself. And so the Babylonians, they conquer these people, and they put them in prison for 70 years. They take all their goods, they imprison their people again. And in an amazing chapter of the book of Daniel, which is this life of the Jewish people, the Hebrew people, being under the occupation, if you will, of the Babylonians, you hear this extraordinary in chapter 3. This story is so important, everyone, that on the holiest day of the Orthodox year, one of the holiest days, that of Easter, Holy Saturday night, that Saturday morning divine liturgy has the story that is found in chapter 3 in every Orthodox church all over the world. It is the story of the three youths, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And so I put in your worship guide, I want you to take it out. I put in the reading of chapter 3. I'll need to pull this out. It'll be a lot helpful for you if you follow along. Chapter 3 in your worship guide. So King Nebuchadnezzar, it's so cool here. This guy, King Nebuchadnezzar, God love him, but just kept making mistake after mistake in every single chapter. You'll see another mistake next chapter, next week. But in chapter 3, he builds this gold image that is 90 feet high, and it's 9 feet thick. And he tells everyone there to bow down and worship this golden image. That's just by the way, just to give you an idea, this church is at the top of its dome. It's only about 75 to 80 feet. Could you imagine a 90-foot solid gold and 9 feet thick thing that they are called to worship? And Nebuchadnezzar, this king, he says, if you don't bow down to this, you're going to be thrown into a furnace. And so these people, all of them, all the people, start bowing down to what the new God is telling them to follow. Better yet, they're bowing down to a culture that is telling them, you need to worship this God. It's funny how it's gold. And they're worshiping and they're bowing, but these three youths, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, say, no, we're not. These are teenagers, by the way. You young people should hear this. This is these teenagers that stood up when everyone else was bowing down. Listen to what it says. I'm on the second part of that. It says, on the first part, it says, where it's bolded, it says, these are the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It says, if we are thrown into that blazing furnace, the God that we serve, he's able to deliver us. In other words, the culture can shift, but our faith doesn't shift. Culture can shift, but the truth remains the same. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But then it goes on. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve any other god or image of gold that you've set up. And then we shift to the other side of that page. King Nebuchadnezzar gets so angry that he says, really, you're not going to do that? I'm going to light that furnace and I'm going to make it 7 times hotter. He makes it so hot that his own guards who were putting Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in that furnace, and they're tying them up, he makes it so hot that the guards that are putting those in the fire die themselves of the heat. And no matter how hot he makes it, no matter how hot that furnace gets, those Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, man, they do not waver. They stand true. So much so that when, in the second part, it says that King Nebuchadnezzar sees this and he says, look at the bold letters, he says, look, I see 4 men walking around in that fire. Well, there's only 3, but who's the 4th? We'll talk about that in a minute. Unbound and unharmed. And the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Who's that 4th person? We would say it's Christ. And then he says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God. Like he's blown away by what he's seen. Come out, come here. And then later on we see that when he brings them out there, not even a hair on their head, not even their clothes smells like smoke. How many of you have ever been at a bonfire or at a campfire? Your clothes get smelly, your hair gets smelly. I love how they put that little verse that when they were in that furnace, when they came out, they didn't even smell of the stench of smoke. 12 years ago, our house had caught on fire. All of our clothes was burned. And even when we walk in that house, we'd walk in for literally a few moments just to walk in our house, and several houses in our neighborhood were struck by lightning. We'd walk in, and literally the clothes that we were wearing at that time, brand new clothes, would be smelled with the stench of smoke. But the Bible says that when these people walked in and came out, they didn't even smell like smoke. That's the power of what God does when you stand up when everyone else is bowing down to that. And just so you all know, I love the statement that King Nebuchadnezzar says at the very end. It's in the bolded letters. Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angels and rescued his servants. They trusted him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their own lives rather than to serve or worship any God except their own God. I don't know about all of you, but when I stand before Christ at the day of judgment, I hope and pray that I hear that phrase. That praise be to God that Nick Lowe, you didn't worship any other God. So what do? How do we bow down to the right God in our life, in our families, in this culture that is shifting everyone? I want to give you 3 areas. Here's number 1. We bow down to God by choosing, listen to me everyone, conviction over compromise. Conviction over compromise. You and I are Orthodox Christians. And some of you that are going through catechism, you're already part of our family. You walk in those doors, you're part of this family. But can I just tell you what let me just remind all of us what the word orthodox means. It means the right or true belief. In other words, the world can change. Even sometimes you may want the church to change, but it is orthodox. It does not change. And what you and I need to hear so loudly is that you have to have a conviction into something. What is a conviction? A conviction, listen to me everyone, is when you evict things that are keeping you from God's best. A conviction is when you evict something that is keeping you from God's best. And oftentimes what keeps us from God's best, look at me everyone, is what you're thinking. You allow your mind to tell you it's not a big deal. You allow it to have that kind of compromising mentality when it comes to your faith. When it comes to your marriage, everyone's doing it. We don't need to do all that. You single people that are here, you young adults, You're being told to compromise on your lifestyle, on your attitude, on the way in which you should accept. Believe me, everyone, that's the Nebuchadnezzar you have in your life. And you have to have some certain, listen to me, everyone, non-negotiables in your life. Because if you don't have some certain non-negotiables, someone else will tell you what to negotiate on. If you don't have non-negotiables, this is what I stand for, someone else will tell you. Let me say it even simpler, because you kind of look at me like I'm saying something that's not processing yet. Okay. You have to have some things that you know without a shadow of a doubt are not wavering. Like I know without a doubt that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Period. He doesn't change with culture. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. What are you convicted about? St. Paisios, a great saint of our church, a new saint in our church, says that our thoughts are like little airplanes. They just keep flying around. And once in a while, not all those thoughts are good, but your brain is like the runway. And whatever you allow to land on your runway will stay. How many of you are allowing your runway to be things that will cause you to compromise in your life? You need to be convicted and evict the things that are keeping you from God's best. Here's number 2. Not only do we have conviction over compromise, we have confidence over chaos. Let me speak to you young people, but really it's for all of us. I'm a priest. It'd be easy for me, I'm from Jacksonville, it'd be easy for me that when I hang out with my friends, I become someone different from my high school friends. In other words, if I was one thing in front of you and then switch to someone else when I'm not with you. But what I want you to hear is that I can't do that. Not because I'm worried about people seeing. I'm worried about what God thinks of me. And sometimes I would argue that God looks over us and goes, who are you on a Sunday morning when they see us acting something different throughout the week? When they see a post that we send? When they hear our words in a conversation? When they hear how we talk about other people? Who are you? And what I want you to know is that when you stand for Christ, you need to also recognize that when you're convicted, you need to be confident because not everyone is going to be on your side. Let me make it even simpler. If conviction is about our thoughts, then confidence is about who you have in your life. You know, you ever notice that, and maybe you've had this in your life, that you've had people in your life that are friends of your life that love you whenever you do what they want you to do. You ever had that? You have friends in your life that will always be hanging out with you as long as you do whatever they want you to do. But the moment that you switch away from that, they're no longer your friends. Can I just tell you, they were never really your friends. They were the Nebuchadnezzar you had in your life. And what I'm telling you is that when you stand confident in what you are, not everyone is going to agree with you. But listen, you need to find some Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego friends that will stand with you in the midst of the furnace of this world. Who are those people in your life? Who are they? Do you have a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? I'm serious about that. Do you have people? The Bible says bad company corrupts good character. Another part of the Bible says, don't let your pearl hang out with the pigs. Don't let you as a pearl hang out with things that are dirtying you up. And here's number 3. Conviction over compromise, confidence over chaos. And then number 3 is there's purpose in the furnace. There's purpose in the furnace. You know, Nebuchadnezzar, in this particular chapter, is so moved by seeing those 3 youths that he changes. And he says, I want everyone, to read the last couple sentences in this chapter, I want everyone to worship the God of that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Can I tell you that when you stand for God, he stands with you. He's in that furnace with you. And I just want to encourage all of you that in your own life, that when you see the world around you kind of just changing, when you see the world compromising, that if you hold firm and stay firm as Christians we are called to do, people are moved. Now I'm going to just share something on my heart. We look at a world right now, and it happens almost every few years, where they pit us against each other. During the COVID pandemic, it was, you're wearing a mask, I'm not wearing a mask. You see that even during election period. You're a Republican, I'm a Democrat. The world is constantly trying to pit us against each other. You see it even happening in the international world right now. You're with this or you're with that. Stop buying into the Nebuchadnezzar that this world is telling us to do. That liturgy that we are celebrating right now says that we are to pray for peace in this world, non-negotiable, for everyone, that every life matters, whether you're here or whether you're there. That our life is not more valuable than someone else's life. And we as Christians, we are like those people that were there in Babylon. Let's bow down to this gate. Let's bow down to this image. Listen, everyone. At the end of time, you and I are all going to stand before Christ. We're going to stand before him. I'm just telling you this to be careful, everyone. This is not home, just so you know. This is not home. We're going to stand before God. And his question to all of us is this. Inasmuch as you did to the least person, you did it to me. I want you to think of who's the least person that you just can't stand in this world. Think about that person. And Jesus is saying, this is non-negotiable. Like I'm telling you, like this is his words. This is what they call the red letters in the Bible. He's saying, you did it to them, that's what you're doing to me. That's what you're doing to me. And so I can tell you this, that the fire in you, listen to me, is greater than the furnace that is out before you. But you better keep that fire lit, because they want you to follow another Nebuchadnezzar that will take you off of what God yearns for you to be. So I leave you with this. I love sharing this story. I know I've taken a little bit more time than usual, but just passionate about this issue because I think that many of us are getting caught up with the different Nebuchadnezzars that are in the world. In the 1950s, a woman named Marina Chapman was living in Colombia. And I shared this story a couple years ago, and if you've heard it before, just act like you've never heard it before, it's okay. But Marina Chapman was a young 4-year-old girl. And when she was living in Colombia, people came, robbers, gangs came, and they kidnapped this 4-year-old girl. And they took her into the forest in Colombia, South America. And they did everything that you could imagine. There's kids here, so we're going to keep it still at PG. But you just imagine what they did to this 4-year-old girl. Everything that you could imagine they did to this girl. And then they left her there in the middle of this forest. And for day after day, this girl was crying. She was bleeding. Day after day, no one would hear her cries. No one would hear her pleas. After a few days, these little monkeys that were in the forest came down the tree, and they were looking at this girl, looked so different than what they're used to seeing. So they started hitting her. They started grabbing her hair because this is something that they had never seen before. But they put a little bit of food, some beans. She would eat that, 4 years old would eat that. The next day, the same thing. They would come down. These little monkeys would come and bring down, and they'd put down these little beans for her to eat. And then finally, on the third day, they came down, and they were giving her something to eat, and she was so, as a 4-year-old, crying continuously, not having anyone to help her, that she ended up following these monkeys. There's a book about this one, by the way. And so so this young 4-year-old girl, Marina, follows these people, these little monkeys. And so they follow her, and over the next, listen to this, 10 years, she lives with those monkeys. One day she's up and she ends up not only living with them, but she ends up being able to climb. Her feet become so calloused that she's able to climb up a tree. One day she's up on one of the little branches and she looks down. And as she's looking down, she sees something that's shiny on the ground. She's not too sure what it is, so she comes down the tree. She picks up this thing that's shiny, but then she throws it back up. It was kind of cut on the side, so she drops it down and then goes back up the tree. But she was so intrigued by what she saw on that ground that the following day she comes back down to the tree. She sees that thing that's shiny. She picks it up. She puts it up to herself. She looks at it and then throws it down. And she begins to cry right there. And she's crying and she's crying, and she writes in the book that what she had picked up was a mirror. And the mirror that she saw, the eyes that she saw in that mirror were her own eyes. And for all these years, these 10 years, this most developmental time of a child's life, all these years, she thought that she was a monkey. Like she thought that she was just like all the other animals. And then she looks at this mirror and she goes, wait a minute, I'm different. And she begins to cry. This is a mirror moment for you. You are in this world, but you are not of this world. You are not part of what you see out in this world. And God is looking for you to have a mirror moment in your life to where you say, I'm not going to allow the culture to shift me. No, I'm going to shift this culture. I'm not going to be influenced by it. I'm going to be an influencer of that. And so I'm encouraging you, all of you, let us stand firm. Let us be confident. Let us recognize that we need to be convicted, not compromising. That we need to be confident in the chaos. And that there needs to be a recognition that yes, the furnace is going to get hotter for us. That's okay, because I worship the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And I know that God is for me. No one can be against me. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
We invite you to join Father Nick and his wife, Dr. Roxanne Louh, on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month for their Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls call-in show at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on Ancient Faith Talk.